Don't you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. And now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Yes, it is. Welcome to Inside the Numbers, Freewheeling Friday. All right, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris. Don, who just you heard, will join us in the second hour to do our Q&A. So get your questions in. If you like the videos, go ahead and like them on YouTube. If you're still watching YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But, of course, if you're streaming on Getter, streaming on Twitter, right? Do what you do there. All right. Polls and primaries. We're going to go over some of the results of the primaries, especially the ones that I believe are significant. I mean, they're all significant. Don't get me wrong. But obviously, some are more significant than others. All right. And then with that in mind as well, we're going to talk about some of the polling. I will just say, I think it's out now, so I can talk about it. But I saw it early this morning. We usually convene in the morning and talk about the polling that we all see together. And generally, we try to track the generic ballot if we can get a public polling project once a month, which I'm going to push today because I think it is important that we get another generic ballot at this point. Why? Because, look, I have said this, the primaries are good news for Republicans on Tuesday. There's just no doubt about it, as they have been generally throughout this cycle. And you can see Republican turnout is definitely superior to Democratic turnout at this point. It doesn't even matter if it's in low turnout, anemic turnout, California, or if it's in higher turnout states like Ohio, for instance, or Georgia, or Pennsylvania was really good turnout. And then we saw even Nevada turnout was really crummy in the Democratic side on Clark County and other areas of the state. Look, but the bottom line is here, it will be a general election electorate in November, which in some cases will be better or worse for different parties' candidates. For instance, in Texas 34, a lot of people were making the case that, well, it was a low turnout and, there'll be a lot more Democrats. That's not really true in South Texas. In Central Valley, for instance, where people are also talking about that, in other areas in Orange County in California. That's different because in that case, Republicans have not made the solid, almost generational-like changes among Hispanic voters that we have seen in South Florida, and I think we are going to see in South Texas. There's a difference. What do I mean by this? Older, lower turnout electorates, all right, especially like the special election or primary electorate we saw in Texas 34, tend to have older voters, of course, like I just said, who have stronger ancestral ties to the party that has dominated that area historically. In the general election, there will be younger people, and I don't mean 18 to 24, 25 to 29. I'm talking about that prime working age, 30 to 44, and then even you, of course, can see generational change from 45 to 64. It's just a lot less so. And we went over this in Pennsylvania with black men before the election. If you remember, if you're a viewer that long, we went over this in detail in the Keystone State with Trump doing much better among black men, which he wound up doing better with black women as well. And that age had a lot to do with it. It was everything. Younger black men did not have the ties that bind their parents to the Democratic Party. Their loyalties simply not as strong. So they are more inclined to change their party preference if something is going on, like their wallet is empty. All right. In the case of Myra Flores, who, by the way, I want to personally thank for basically making my vision come true. I have been 2, 3. No, Trump was elected in 16. 4, 5 years, more than that. Traveling the country and giving speeches, basically telling people, Lincoln Club in Orange County, by the way, I hate to say it, we just had that California primary. Well, I don't hate to say I'm right. I'm just saying I hate, in your case, I am certainly right. I told you to look for other opportunities. This strategy of defense, playing defense, my stronghold, my remaining stronghold, in case San Diego didn't tip you off, is not going to work. And that trying to maximize your share of a shrinking white vote that is getting more and more educated is a stupid move. A very stupid move. The Mitt Romney wing of the Republican Party is so dangerous to the viability of that party in the future precisely because it cannot reach, we call it bleed over. If you appeal to the working class, if you appeal to any class, you are going to appeal, the higher you get in your vote share with them, is going to bleed into different racial groups. You simply can't win X share of the working class vote, non-college degree, working class vote. You simply can't do it on the back of white vote alone. Over the years in California, Orange County, San Diego, and there was an article in the San Francisco Chronicle just a week and a half ago lamenting this to be the case because it is true. There is no working class. It shrunk. It's almost gone. They have absolutely abandoned the state of California in droves. Where have they gone, by the way? Nevada, Arizona, Texas, and Florida. They are done. The populations are not big enough to only think that you can appeal to a white vote and that's it. Because once that educated white vote moves against you, you're done. You're finished. A plus B is not going to equal 50 plus 1. When B gets so damn small. And that's basically the only coalition that the Mitt Romney wing of the party ever appealed to. And so when we look at the case of Texas 34, for instance, in November, yes, the district was redrawn. It's not a Biden in a couple of points. It's going to be a Biden plus 13 or 14, I believe, around that. And I'm telling you, that's still not safe. Not in this environment. We're going to go over it because a couple of things happened that, and I'm going to showcase Myra Flores' race first, because I think that obviously we didn't get a chance to talk about it on Wednesday. It was up till 3 o'clock in the morning with locals. So we just didn't do it. All right. So let's pop it up. Come on, any day now. And you guys know if you use Decision Desk, you know that basically it could glitch on us real quick. And I'll make it bigger for you guys. There we go. That bigger, me smaller. We're going to come back to talk about some of these other races. She's up here, isn't she? Sorry, I was looking through a bunch of different things. This is Dina Titus, Russell Fry. There she is. Okay. So she beat Dan Sanchez 50.1 basically to 43.3. There is another 4 points roughly of the Democratic vote. But there is another 1.6 of the, I would call it the MAGA vote. That's probably the best way to do it. Why? Because again, I want to just turn back here and say that I had been literally traveling the country for years, telling Republicans to look in other places. They didn't listen. They listened to taco eating Frank Luntz. They saw the percentage of the vote share that is Hispanic, and they flee like cowards. That's what they do. In 2020, as recently as 2020, Texas 15 it's now obvious. Everyone believes it's going to be gone. But before the district lines were redrawn and approved, the old Texas 15 still would have been D plus a few points, not Biden plus a few points, D plus about 3 points under a generic Republican Democrat situation, and in the congressional at the congressional level. Yet it was Trump plus 3 in this new district as well. So Trump had the ability to carry these voters that have been shifting when Republicans were lagging behind it. They again, they saw that 85% Hispanic vote share and they cowered. They ran away from it. So one of the more interesting things for me to watch Tuesday night was comments. from all of these people who suddenly are pretending that they saw this all along. No, they didn't. The rich white Republican donor class would basically laugh me out of their events. So they didn't see it coming, and they damn sure didn't see this coming. Mayra Flores actually in the last and final dump in Cameron, which everyone was waiting for Sanchez to get, because we didn't have any of DeWitt. We had very little bit in Gonzalez. Obviously, those were very pro-Trump counties, and people expected them to go for Flores pretty heavily, but they're smaller votes than Cameron, a lot smaller votes. And people were expecting Dan Sanchez to maybe get enough to keep Flores below 50 in Cameron. That last dump, not only did he underperform, she actually took the lead. And that last little bit, election day vote, put Flores over the top. All right. There is some areas, though, to look like, for instance, Hidalgo County. This is 50 to 43. It's not a bad margin. But in the new district, Hidalgo is going to have to be close, if Flores wants to win the district district-wide. She wants to win the race district-wide. It just, Hidalgo is going to have to be closer than this. She's going to have to fight this a lot. 10 points, that's a little bit tough. All right. But anyway, DeWitt, obviously, she did over 82% of the vote there in the end. Kennedy is huge. This was close. There was almost no votes. So, that's going to obviously have people who are like, what happened to Kennedy? That's another conversation, but it was extremely low. In November, will it be? I don't think so. All right. In Gonzalez, again, 82.3% of the vote. Also still a very low turnout, only a little bit of, vote there. And Goliad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in these more suburban and rural areas of Hispanic communities, Republicans are doing extremely well. In Cameron, that's the flag, because turnout will be higher, and I actually think that there's opportunity in the electorate for Mayra to pull a little closer than she was in the general election. Now, Sanchez played the blame game. When he lost and conceded, which was on election night, in the wee hours of election night, he blamed the Democratic Party. He blamed them for their decision making, and he also blamed them, frankly, for not helping him. I honestly don't think there was anything that they kind of saw the handwriting on the wall. I think they decided to throw him to the wolves and to try to recoup the seat in November, to save their money and let him basically just, burn. The bottom line is here, even if he would have pulled Maya Flores below 50, he still would have lost. He would have lost a runoff. There's just more enthusiasm in Republican areas around the country like this, and there is Democrat, that's number one. But also, too, I think that in the end, they don't have 50+% in this district anymore. But listen, Biden plus 14 is still on the line. Everywhere we've been polling in these districts, everywhere, the higher the turnout, the better it looks for Republicans. That's in most cases, but in most cases. Somewhere like this, you have people who are just younger. They're going to vote in November. I mean, maybe they'll vote for the first time. Maybe you'll look at 12% to even upwards of 18% first time midterm participation, given what we're seeing in the polling. I think it's going to be a higher turnout midterm. And those voters have very loose associations, if any, with the Democratic Party. And they will be voting on their pocketbook. They will not be voting on abortion. They will be voting on their pocketbook. Here is the rub, however. Republicans could be screwing themselves over at basically any given moment. You may or may not have seen that the generic ballot, which is why I'm making such a big deal about this, you may have not seen that the generic ballot tightened on Rasmussen's tracking this week. All right, so Republicans are still ahead, but it's 46 to 41. That's kind of significant for two reasons. One, Republicans came down a little bit, and 2, Democrats cracked 40%. In both of our polling and the polling of other people, Democrats have really struggled to get above 40%. It's rout territory, complete rout territory. What is, causing this? What is doing this? There will be issues. Let's talk, like, for instance, the Second Amendment. Republicans just stabbed each other right in the back over this gun rights bill. Or it's gun control bill. It's not gun right bill. That is an issue that Republicans risk depressing their base and depressing right-leaning Republicans come the fall. There is only downside. There is no political upside, nor is there any upside for society, which is, I think, most important here. There is no upside to Republicans supporting legislation that restricts gun rights and depresses their voters, especially given there is no benefit to society. It will not address the bigger and larger problem of mass shootings, which are caused by completely different. The guns have absolutely nothing to do with it. I've been over this before. I'm not going to get into it again. The Second Amendment was ratified in December of 1791. The modern phenomena of mass shooting began after the 60s counterculture with the University of Texas. This is an issue of cultural rot and the decay of the family unit and the cultural castration of men in this country. We are sick. And laws are not going to prevent it from happening again, especially since the media is reckless and at this point causes mass shootings. See all of the countless references that I have provided on this issue in the past. Republicans like John Cornyn, Mitch McConnell, and others are stupid. They know how to make sausage. That's it. They know how to make the legislative sausage. They're shrewd legislators. They are dumb politicians. There is only downside for Republicans to cave on these issues. It's very similar to abortion. Those anti-people are going to vote anyway. They always do. There's no left-wing coalition that you're ginning up by not reacting. Number 2, the people who fuel these temporary, rather fake bumps in support for gun control laws are not going to vote on whether or not Republicans took up a bill to basically strip 18 to 21-year-olds of their right to keep and bear arms, which, by the way, is nowhere in the freaking Constitution. So Adam Kinzinger, the warmonger, who should probably have a seat in The Hague somewhere, is perfectly fine with sending your 18-year-old child to get their face blown off in eastern Ukraine for no reason, for his donors' financial interests. But he doesn't think that that same child is old enough or mature enough to carry a weapon. It's outrageous. And all you're going to do is depress your vote by doing this. I'm not at all surprised to see that Republican caving and the January 6th spectacle that leaders like Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell have not only tolerated, but let's face it, pushed in the background. They're watching all of this. And you do not inspire. You can only make it so far on hate for the other side. You have to inspire as well. Where have these leaders been? Peter Navarro was arrested. The base loves him. The Trump base loves Peter Navarro. He's indicted on some ridiculous charge. Kevin McCarthy doesn't say a word. Mitch McConnell doesn't say a word. Steve Bannon, who they hate, was the only one who believed me. I got to point this out. This is important. And we'll pull this back up in a second. Years ago, when I was arguing economic nationalism was going to, with a combination of cultural conservatism and economic nationalism was going to attract the Hispanic vote that was feeling abandoned by a crazy, elite, white, Democratic base. Steve Bannon was the only one who believed me. I mean, there's others too. Don't get me wrong. Steve Cortez. They said these are smart enough people to see that. So prosecute them. Go prosecute Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. And allow it to happen. And while you're at it, strip the gun rights of 18 to 21-year-olds. The age that we designate to go over and fight these wars that profit the rich Democratic class in this country doesn't profit the base. The base doesn't profit from this. They opposed all of this. Pastor Rock, the Republican base, has not been the warmongering base. So they don't, well, I have to do this right now because I got to tell you, don't underestimate Republicans' ability to screw things up. Don't. So while, of course, there's a reason to celebrate if you're a Republican, really, there's reason to celebrate if you're MAGA in these results, not if you're a Republican. And there is some cause for concern. So I don't want to be like one-sided here. And as Don, who will be on in the second hour, always says, especially with the gun rights stuff, it doesn't matter. You could give them the 18 to 21 rifle ban. That will never be enough. Do you really think, Mitch McConnell, that's going to satisfy them? Do you think you look like what? Reasonable or something? Or are you just disarming, a population of the country, to make it easier for your Chinese friends? It's a total joke. It's a total joke. All right, let's look at this again. All right, so that's why 34 obviously is really, really important. We'll go back up, but I do want to just remark here. This is one area where the progressive left lost. They have been winning. Left-wing, look, Amy Villela is a radical left-wing activist. That's all she is. And as of now, at least, Dina Titus is crushing her in District 1, which obviously makes up Clark County. All right, so this is notable as well. This is a notable race because in Pennsylvania, everywhere, you can find examples everywhere. The so-called establishment Democratic candidate has been taking a beating this cycle. Not too many people have been talking about it. If the roles were reversed, believe me, you'd be hearing about it because it would be an election in which Republicans were expected to get their butts kicked, yet they would be painted as radical for nominating these like total uber ultra base candidates, regardless of the fact that the moderate would do better potentially in a race that they can't afford to lose. You would hear it all the time. But here, Democrats are getting killed. These radical leftists are taking more and more nominations during an election cycle in which Democrats are expected to get their butts kicked, but you don't hear a peep about it. Well, it's unwise to elect the radical socialists, to nominate the socialists. A more moderate candidate could do better to limit Democrats' losses. That's what you would hear. All right. Here's obviously all eyes were on this. I do think it's fair to say that Nancy Mace benefited at least somewhat from open primary voting in South Carolina. And the reason why I said that, do I know if it would make a difference or not? I don't. I mean, we're talking about almost 6,000 votes here. That's a lot in a district. Like, I know the percentages seem close, but I think in the end, 8 points. By the way, fantastic job by Trafalgar. I think, and at Katie Arrington, again, with their pollster, Remington Research gave her that informed ballot crap, which showed her with a 20-point lead over Nancy Mace. 20 points. That's a almost 30-point miss. Nancy Mace's pollster, which is Basswood Research, did a much better job, without a doubt. And whoever partnered with, what was it? Polls USA or PPP Polls USA, something like that. They did a decent job as well. I think they had Mace up by 4. Congressional districts are difficult to poll. It's a smaller population, obviously smaller sample sizes. They're very fickle, especially on a primary. Who you're going to vote for, who's going to show up, is a lot tougher of a question to answer. So fantastic job by Trafalgar. Good job by Basswood. You did your client justice, Nancy Mace's pollster. Terrible job by Katie Arrington's pollster. The informed ballot is not legitimate research. You don't put that out for public consumption. That's something maybe the campaign wants to test, but you do not put out something like, well, I got a 20-point lead. Because, once the voters, they don't know that I have the Trump endorsement. Once they know, then I have a 20-point lead. So therefore, I have a 20-point lead. That's not legitimate survey research. That only serves the purpose for a campaign of letting them know whether or not you need to get a message out. You're failing to do so. And Mace, by the way, may be anti-Trump, but she didn't campaign as it. The same week that Donald Trump endorsed Katie Arrington, Nancy Mace did a video in front of Trump Tower talking about how he was basically the greatest president ever. So she did not run this anti-Trump campaign. The truth, folks, is always somewhere in the middle. It really is. You have one side says one thing, one side says the other. The media says this. The truth is always somewhere in between. And the truth is Nancy Mace did not run an anti-Trump. She was not knocking on doors telling people at the doorstep that she was anti-Trump. That's bull. Almost nobody has run an anti-Trump campaign and won. By the way, that includes Kemp. Because Kemp was threading the needle. He basically was saying, I'm super conservative. I totally support what the president did. I just disagree here with him on election fraud. I just disagree with this one thing. Nobody has run a campaign and won full on like I hate Donald Trump. Somebody else and won, because we're going to look at another example of what happens when you do. Although, yes, it is a different district. The bottom line is Mace ran a good race. And I do think, like I said, she did. Look, why? Because, all right, look at Beaufort, for instance. It's 42.8 to 45.9. The pattern of how much Arrington gained during Election Day voting is pretty consistent across the district in different counties and precincts, except for in Charleston, where she was not pulled down considerably. Now, Charleston is the old Lindsey Graham kind of Republican. It's very different than another county we're going to look at. It has changed. Once upon a time, could be lumped in with another county that we're going to look at for South Carolina 7. But over time, one of those counties adapted, and the other one, like Charleston, did not. They remain the Lindsey Graham. I'm a super reasonable Republican, and I like to start wars. I have a lot of money, so that's all right with me. Mace did well here, and I do suspect that obviously. So we did a little social media dive to see if there was a lot of Democrats talking about voting for Nancy Mace. We did find quite a few of them. So we know she did benefit somewhat. I just don't think it was decisive. I really don't. But I will point this out. In Charleston, is Nancy Mace's almost her entire margin. All but 1,000 votes. There was a question about Jasper when a little precinct that borders, on Beaufort, which really Nancy Mace's entire hope to get it to stay above 50%. was hinging on Beaufort at one point in the night. What happened is there was adjacent precincts where Arrington, that first early vote was reported, and Arrington not only did well, I mean, she crushed Mace in it, and then it got even worse for Mace when the election day vote was reported. So everyone was thinking, well, maybe Mace is not going to do as well. Maybe Beaufort could. It's possible that Beaufort could either tie it out or even be a slight lead for Arrington. It's not going to come in the way Mace needs it to come in. But in the end, it did, and it gave her that other 1,600 votes, which is really, that's really where, what's the word I'm looking for? That there's more vote out, which is, I know people are like, Arrington would have had to do a little bit better in Beaufort, in my opinion. I know they pulled that back, but we'll just have to see. All right. This is a little bit different of a race. Now, Rice did run, unlike Mace, Rice did run an I Hate Donald Trump campaign, and screw Donald Trump. He was on MSNBC leading up to the election. Why? Because it's an open primary, and he was trying to get Democrats in District 7 to come out and vote for him over Russell Fry, who was endorsed by Trump fairly early, by the way. All right. Russell, this was one of the ones we did call. I even congratulated him personally. I mean, I was talking with somebody on election night when we were doing the locals coverage, and the vote was just not there for Rice ever. He was doing better in some areas, for instance, like Chesterfield, all right, where Russell Fry was still ahead, but he was far below. That was not because Rice was doing any better, however. It was because Garrett and Barton, were doing, or Arthur and Barton, really, Garrett Barton, excuse me, were doing better than they were doing in the rest of those areas. Compared to these other counties, they were just not non-factors, but certainly a lot less. And Fry was taking the lion's share, even majorities, of the anti-Rice vote. You look at somewhere like Darlington, for instance, he was a little bit below as well. But in the end, Marlboro and Marion that were out. And there was still some left in Horry, but the last chunk in Horry that came in, which I'll show you right now, this is the other county that I was referring to when we were looking at South Carolina 1. Once Fry really started to stretch his legs out in Horry County, which is a big vote-getting county, that was a wrap. I have to stop and tell you some history about why this is important. Hold on, let me sip some water. I'm going to take us back here about 6 years. If I'm not drinking Essentia or Smart Water, which my young son told me about, pH levels, Dad, they're better for your body. He was right. Then it's all about the pure life. All right, but and no, I don't get sponsorships from saying that. All right, so Horry County back in 2016. All right, outside of Charleston, for instance, there was Horry County. Donald Trump had done much better in the Iowa caucuses than anybody thought. Of course, Ted Cruz won them with his little trick that Ben Carson was no longer in the caucus, but he won them. But Trump came in a strong second, even though he really didn't compete for it. And then you had Rubio behind him. Going into New Hampshire, Donald Trump wins. Not just easily, he wins handily. Yes, it was a big crowd, so he was only in the 30s, but it was still a dominant win because there were so many candidates, and Trump was in the 30s, and he had won everywhere in New Hampshire, from Manchester to the most rural northern counties, all right? Now, you still get plucked off, but nobody had ever done that in the state of South Carolina. And the establishment, the anti-Trump, never a Trump, remember National Review? They believed that, and I know they didn't give up after South Carolina. Normally, you do. When you get your butt kicked in one of those first two primaries, in a Republican primary, historically, you pivot into South Carolina, and the winner, with the exception of Newt Gingrich, the winner of the South Carolina Republican primary goes on to win the nomination. They get all of the steam, they get all of the momentum, they get all of the fundraising. Well, never Trump. could not have that crap. Trump had done extremely well in Iowa, which was shocking to them. He went into New Hampshire. He dominated New Hampshire. If he was going to win South Carolina, which, by the way, we had him doing by 10 points, never less than 8. We nailed South Carolina. If they were going to do it, they were going to have to stop him in South Carolina, so they brought in the big guns. They brought in George W. Bush. Him and his brother had campaigned all over South Carolina, but they really focused on Charleston and Horry County. Because in Horry, which is now Trump country, it was not always believed to be Trump country. Horry was the tea time golf club, vacationing Myrtle Beach Republican. I got money. All right. We have one of those in North Carolina as well, where a lot of people thought Trump would not do well. It's in Carteret County and it's called Morehead City. Boating communities, you name it, right? People who are affluent. They may not be overly educated snobs, but they're affluent. They have their country clubs, right? So Bush's and the establishment, the Fox Newses, they thought they could end Trump in Horry County. Well, it didn't happen. Donald Trump, for the first time, it was a historic win in the state of South Carolina, carried every single county in the state of South Carolina and took every single delegate. It was never done before, but it's important because it tells you how far these coalitions have come. You have Charleston in South Carolina 1 still holding on to the Mitt Romney, George W. Bush wing of the Republican Party, when even places like Horry County, even places like Morehead, they're like, it's over. Get over it. We're not going back. And without those people, what do they have left? Who do they have left to convince? Rural America? Because if they can't, look, they got a foothold in the excerpts. Some excerpts. They have a foothold in downright urban areas. But if they can't take these non-metro wealthy suburbs, then they have nothing left. There's nowhere else to go. You understand? I hope I'm making myself perfectly clear here. There's nowhere else for the Bush wing to go, for the Romney wing to go. We saw it in Ohio. We saw them just obliterated in Texas. We saw it in Pennsylvania. Even with a crowded field, there was nowhere where they were really dominant. If they can't win these areas back, like Horry County, they have no future at all. Because they're sure as hell not going to win back more, the down country, downstate in Illinois, the up country in South Carolina, they call it. What are you going to win? Who else are you going to appeal to? You lost the rural right. You have nothing but urban America Republicans, metro Republicans. And you have Republicans in the suburbs outside of those metro areas. But if they're not metro suburbs, yet they're still wealthy, they're still educated, it's Trump country. They have nothing. A Republican coalition cannot be built on an urban center. It's never going to happen. Well, not never. Never say never in political coalitions. I'm simply saying the trend is not their friend. And this race with Russell Fry against Tom Rice is a perfect example. Because Tom simply didn't have a city to save him. Nancy Mace had a city to save her. But Russell Fry did not. Tom Rice did not, and Russell Fry drummed him. So once it was a little bit of Horry out, there was some Chesterfield left, but it didn't matter because it's not like it just wasn't enough to offset. Even Georgetown, for Christ, crying out loud, Georgetown, Fry thumped everybody there. 55% of the vote, damn near. All right, so there's just no good news for the Romney right. There's no good news. Anyway, all that was out was Marion. You see, Fry did 54% of the vote there, and Marlboro with a little bit of Horry, which just kept getting more and more pro-Fry as those last bits of results came in, and that was it, folks. That was a wrap. All right, so it was over before they called it. Believe me. When I told you, when I said goodbye Rice, it was over. All right, that was it. There was no coming back. All right, so another one. Let's move into Nevada here. Mark Amoti, easily fended off a challenge from Danny Tarkanian. This is the third time Danny sought office. A lot of Trumpers really like him. But the bottom line is I just feel like Mark is not a terribly, he's not a rhino. He's really not like some of these other people. So I really just felt like there was no reason to challenge him from the right, and the voters agreed. And that's really what it came down to there. There's that race, along with one, which we're going to talk about in a second, was also over relatively quickly before anybody had called it. Look, primary state Senate Republican primary District 2, they're holding off on because, as you can see in excuse me. Oh, it's tiny. There it is. 91% of the vote is in. It looks like a 9-point lead, which is rather dominant. But the fact of the matter is, we're only talking about 140 votes, less than 140 votes, 136 or something. So you just got to give it time. This is an interesting race. Joey Gilbert let me give you the background. Joe Lombardo, he got the Trump endorsement. This is really surprising to me. And this, Esmeralda, really surprising. Esmeralda might change hands, though, because Joey Gilbert was doing much better in that late vote. Even, by the way, so Joe Lombardo, depends where you're looking. But Joey Gilbert easily won the election day vote in Washoe County, where he is from. There will be some ballots that arrive late. It may change again. And Lombardo did not have the lead here in Washoe. He had the lead when the early vote was counted. Nevada is crazy. There's early vote, then there's election day vote, and then there's I don't know where these ballots are coming from vote, late arriving mail-in ballots. It's, look, this people are still voting in Washoe excuse is a load of crap. At the very least, it demonstrates that election officials are incompetent. This is not a particularly huge election where the ballots are coming out of your nose, so you don't know, if you can get all these people online to vote, through the lines before the polls close. That's a load of crap. These elections in Nevada are mismanaged, and it is a disgrace. The Silver State should be ashamed of themselves. By the way, there's a Republican in that state position. This is a disgrace. A total disgrace that we had to wait like this. There is no excuse. They're normalizing chaos, electoral chaos. In case you haven't noticed, that's what's happening here. Every election we see, more and more, they are normalizing electoral chaos. They are making you just, come to grips with the fact that it is a total you-know-what show. It's the Wild West. They're normalizing, and low standards is not even the word, unacceptable standards for conducting elections. And I know that people wondered why I called this race so quickly. All right, this governor's race. And I know I actually got a lot of angry calls. All right. I know Joey. I know a lot of his supporters. And, they were like, what the hell are you talking about? We're ahead. We're ahead by 15 points. The Secretary of State did not make public the results from Clark County as quickly as we had them. So we knew that the margin in Clark County was going to be basically all the margin he needed. That's Joe Lombardo needed. He wound up doing better in Nye and in Lincoln even than, some people thought he would do, although there may be some votes. Joey Gilbert dominated, and some people are taking issue with me saying this, that Lombardo has base issues. He does. He's got base issues. Now, he could consolidate that. I'm just saying. I'm pointing out the fact that He was getting, on election night, he was getting his butt kicked everywhere not named Clark County. Even Joey Gilbert was in the lead in Washoe, which he very well may be when the rest of this vote comes in. That's Joey's base. So the fact that normally somebody like Lombardo would walk away with Washoe County, but because Joey is from there, somebody ultra base like Joey Gilbert put up a hell of a fight in Washoe County. That was always important to who the nominee should be, because there is one way to win if you're a Republican in the state, and you can't sacrifice one for the other. You can do better in Las Vegas. That's great. But it won't really matter if you do marginally better, which I'm not sure Lombardo is going to do. For some reason, a lot of people think that in Vegas, Lombardo and Clark County generally, Lombardo is going to do better because of his position. I don't know that to be the case. Lombardo got Trump's endorsement, but Lombardo is not America first. I hate to break everybody's heart. He is not America first. Honestly, I understand why Trump didn't endorse Joey Gilbert. I get it. Joey isn't the most disciplined, but he is the most real. He was an early fighter against COVID, which is why, by the way, Elko County, he crushed everybody there. He was suing in these little counties when they were closing schools, the mask mandates. No lawyer would take these cases. Churchill also rewarded him, by the way. No lawyer would take these cases. Joey was the only one. When local officials were like, we need to push back, Joey Gilbert not only was the only one who stepped up to do it, but he did it and he won. You think this state, the Silver State, was draconian on their lockdowns? They would have been even worse without Joey Gilbert. It's also true, Joey is a very popular guy in Washoe. He's like all over billboards. For people who don't know this, maybe you have one in your state. We do, like Morgan and Morgan in Florida. We have people like that. We're just like name recognition lawyers that are known definitely in certain areas of the state, but generally all over it. Different campaigns have different strategies. If I was Joey, I would have just primarily focused on 2 counties, because I think it was obvious he was going to romp in these basey counties. But he's got a lot of friends. Floyd Mayweather, he didn't pull all of the tools in his toolbox that he had. He could have pulled. And in the end, I just don't, I see Trump endorse Lombardo because it was a safer endorsement, and because Michael Flynn has been around the Gilbert campaign quite a bit, and there's like some Q stuff issue there, which they didn't answer quick enough or fast enough. So I get that, but let's face it, the president himself had maybe not Q, but the president himself had dabbled in some things that were. I'm just saying, I don't know what Joey brought up that Trump himself hasn't said or done. Joey supported Donald Trump when it was not only uncool to support him, but financially risky. Joey put his business and his practice at risk to support the president, and Lombardo did not. Not only did he not, he wasn't during the immigration fights. He was not on board. And there's no doubt voters don't know that. But here we are. These do, though. When the lockdowns came and they needed somebody's help, it was Joey who helped. Did you guys see the Vegas Strip or see what Reno looked like because of the lockdowns? Not good. I think the lockdowns played a major role in why we see what we see here. I don't think this would be this color without Trump's endorsement. I think Gilbert would have taken Nye without Trump's endorsement, and he damn sure would have taken Lincoln. Or somebody would have. But wouldn't have been Lombardo. Trump's endorsement got him Douglas, which he barely is holding on to. And I think it absolutely impacted in Washoe, where Joey probably would have just run away with Washoe without Trump's endorsement. This is a state where the Trump endorsement does have weight. It does. And I dare I say that Trump's endorsement helped Lombardo in his own damn county. Without that, I'm thinking it's a lot different race. Without Donald Trump endorsing Joe Lombardo, I'm seeing a very different race. And I'm expressing that there is cause for concern here because the three things that you need to win this state if you're a Republican, several are in jeopardy. You cannot win the silver state as a Republican if you don't fight Washoe to a draw. Joey, without the Trump endorsement, is the stronger candidate in Washoe County, even with all his baggage. His name recognition there is huge, and he was liked. I'm not talking about just by Republicans. He has been portraying himself as the fighter for the little guy. I'm the legal fighter for the little guy. All races. The media used to love him until he announced that he was running for governor as a Republican. They loved him. They gave him awards. Papers gave him awards. Joey Gilbert, the champion of the little man, wins again. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I think without a doubt, he was probably going to be the stronger candidate in his own home base. I do. Again, without Trump's endorsement, I don't think Lombardo gets anywhere near this vote in Washoe in a Republican primary. And I worry about places like Elko, which you need those few thousand votes. They're not big, they're not big vote. Well, they are in this state. They're smaller counties, but you need to squeeze as much out of them as possible. Douglas is another one. Churchill is another one. Right now, Douglas Lombardo's actually leading in, but that was a very Trumpian county. And I can't imagine Lombardo with Carson City right next door. Look at Lyon and Carson City. It's a very Trumpian area. You just had some of these Republican conservatives say, with all due respect, Donald Trump, we love you. But no, we're going with Joey because of what he did for us. Douglas, a little bit different. So is, by the way, some voters in Washoe and I think that these are voters who would have been like we saw in Pennsylvania. They would like Luzerne. Yeah, I'm much more likely to go with the Trump endorsed candidate. I'm gonna go with what Trump, who Trump is backing to support Donald Trump. Without this, I think without Donald Trump injecting himself in this race, I think Joey would have won this race. Joey Gilbert would have won. I really do. But I know I had a lot of people yelling at me on election night. Why the hell did you call this race? The votes just started coming in and Joey is ahead. Because I knew what I knew what the margin was in Clark County. I knew what the margin was in Clark. It just wasn't posted yet. And there's not enough votes in the rest of the state, guys. It's even with Washoe, which is the second most populous county, there just wouldn't have been. I mean, when you are building up entire, 15,000, it was 20. It was 20,000. Now you're looking at almost 25. So it actually expanded since then. It's just, you can't make it up. There aren't enough votes in the rest of the state to make it up. All right. Well, there are, but you'd have to really win them 75-25 or something like that. And what you see here, he did not. All right. So, and Dean Heller, he's probably not even going to hold Esmeralda. He needs to win. I mean, you need to win the county with the strongest ties. If you're like a former freaking senator, you have got to win the county you have the strongest ties to. He may not even. Joey Gilbert may take it from him. This is one of the most embarrassing performances of the cycle. Even Tom Rice got 25% of the vote, but he was an incumbent. I know, I get it. I'm just saying Dean Heller is another example of how this party has moved on. It has moved on. Dean Heller, a former senator, Mr. Handshake, the retail politician from the Silver State, the only one who could win independence by the double-digit margin needed to offset Clark County. The only one to still be able to hold on to Washoe County gets 13.2% of the vote. And from all accounts, Dean is a nice guy, but he represents the past. And that's where we're at. It's just, there's no constituency for these people anymore. There just isn't. One more thing before the break, I just want to bring up another thing that people give me a hard time over. Mark Robertson won that race when there was 30% of the vote in. Okay? I don't know if people are like, that was really irresponsible of you. Okay. Whatever. We don't even know who this guy Mark Robertson is. Really? Robertson, by the way? You don't know who he is? He raised as much as Serrano. He spent almost as much as Serrano. The only surprising thing about this race is David Bragg came in second. So far as leading Serrano, there's some little bit of vote out, but I mean, I don't know. Serrano would be able to overcome it. Carolina Serrano was the most known or high-profile person in the race. She raised slightly more than Mark. Mark didn't. He spent slightly less, but David raised almost nothing, and he got in second place. That was the surprising thing. I don't know. Once Mark Robertson pulled 30-something% of the early vote, and that first election day batch that we got mirrored the early vote. It was pretty diversely spread out among the precincts in the district. I don't know where you all thought somehow other, votes were going to change the result here. It was over the minute this district was one of the first ones to report both early and election day, a good chunk of it. And by the time we saw about 30-something% of the vote, it was over. You might notice, since I did call that race, the vote margin changed almost nothing. It's almost identical to when I called it at 30-something% of the vote. Why? Because it was so damn uniform. The pattern was so uniform. There was no different demographic precincts adjacent to another that may break in some weird way. The numbers were the numbers. That race was over at 35% of the vote, 33%, whatever the hell it was. All right. So when we come back, we'll talk a lot more about this, but also polls. We'll have my good friend Don Smith will join us. I think Republicans have a real opportunity here, and I think they're doing everything in their power to screw it up. I see a lot of people nominated that shouldn't be nominated. Although there are obviously, no, there aren't. Look, it doesn't matter how many Myra Floreses or how many Russell Fries, et cetera, are nominated and sent to Congress if some of these key players are still there. And especially if especially if the leadership is still there. I mean, will they take a little less time to debate taking your gun rights away? Is that what it will be? Maybe 2 weeks instead of a 1 week knee-jerk reaction bill? And by the way, when Don comes back, I got a question I want to ask. Well, get your questions in, by the way. Don't forget. But I got a question I want to ask. Why isn't Ron DeSantis rolled back the 18 to 21-year-old rifle ban? Has anyone asked him that damn question? All right, but we're gonna talk about it when we come back. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. If you like the video and are watching on YouTube, go ahead and give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But of course, we are definitely imploring everyone to sign up to Rumble, the People's Pundit Rumble channel. And when you're there, you can see the locals community up here and the locals community down there. I'm going to definitely, push the public polling project too this today because, well, first of all, it's June 17th. Second of all, this I think is a critical time to get the generic ballot down and in. I do. And I know because it takes a while for us to get everything together. So the sooner we hit it, the better. So share it far and wide. All right. Getter, I got to give you all a little special shout out here. The audience on Getter, I mean, maybe because I took Wednesday off, it's a little less today, but the audience on Getter has been explosive. Last broadcast on Getter was awesome. The views, we love you. Keep it coming. Don't forget, you can follow me on Getter, the Twitter killer, at People's Pundit. Just a little bit different than on Twitter, which is at People's_Pundit. All right, we'll be back in about 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Stay tuned. We'll have Don Smith. Can't wait to get to the Q&A.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundits, Freewheeling Friday. Get your Q&As in. Laura did have something to do, so it's going to be a little bit harder for me to do this time. Normally, she's got them feeded out. I'm going to read backward. But I'll tell you this. I will settle two things right now from the chat that I was looking at. One is, no, that is not me. Although I do have a similar voice, Don will tell you. I think I'm a little bit more opera-like and raspy, to be honest. I see Don laughing. He's heard me sing. Well, that's what happens when you come to my house for Thanksgiving dinner. Rich is super happy. He just starts singing. And then also, it's called, Bowen Band, although I can tell you why it's hard to find things on them now. But I don't know if I should. I mean, I just, wokeism. Let me just put it that way. Wokeism. All right. And then two, who's to blame for the lockdowns? Look, without a doubt, the CDC gave the governors a pretext to lock down. But nevertheless, ultimately, it is on the governors. They are the ones who have the power to do that. The federal government did not issue a national lockdown order. Unfortunately, Trump let Fauci write recommendations, and the CDC, Rosenstein's sister, everything, to write these recommendations. But the reason why it hurt the economy so bad was 100% on blue state governors. Cuomo, Newsom, Whitmer, even Sisolak in the silver state we were just talking about. That was on them. They refused to open up because they wanted to hurt Donald Trump economically. We know it from their memos. We know it from their political strategy. They felt that if they could slice Donald Trump's Achilles heel, which was the economy, the performance of how well the economy did under Donald Trump, then that would take that issue away from him when it came to the election, and that the election focus would be more on COVID. It did work. Ultimately, I still think it wouldn't have worked without changing the rules of the election and facilitating elections in a manner we have never facilitated them before. And you look at what we were just talking about, the Silver State, they're normalizing electoral chaos now. That is the sad reality. This idea that you can't count votes 2.5 hours after the polls close is 3 hours is nonsense. That's a lie. The media is lying to you. All right. They are not, at the very least, they're incompetent. Somehow a state with 14 million voters. Right. Let me just bring Don on. Don, thanks for joining. Somehow our state with 14 million voters can count votes in 45 minutes. So with 2 different time zones, an hour and a half, maybe, and we're done. I mean, and we have early voting for longer periods of time. Right? We've weeks and have for years, weeks and weeks and weeks of absentee ballot voting. And somehow we crank out those results in an hour and a half. But these states like Pennsylvania, Nevada, they are normalizing chaos. That's what they're doing here. They want Americans to believe that this is normal. It is not. What say you, my friend? Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, and you and I talked about this throughout the entire pandemic. This is what this was all about, was completely changing the landscape of how we vote and making this all seem normal, just like they're doing with everything else, right? I mean, you're supposed to believe now that gas prices, this is just normal, just the way it's going to be, nothing we can do about it. Look what they're doing with all the transgender stuff and all this stuff. It's about making you believe this new normal thing, and they're doing it with our elections. A lot of people forget. When everything was going on with the Russia stuff and it first started becoming a deal, one of the things that Barack Obama said, he stood up to the microphone, and of course he was trying to mock then candidate Trump. And he said, there is no serious person that could even think that our elections could be hacked by Russia. He specifically said Russia. The reason he went on to say was because our election system is so decentralized, which is true. What are they pushing for now? To centralize it, to make it a federal thing. So apparently maybe he wants people to hack. I don't know. Again, he was using that to slam Trump. That's all he was doing. But really, in reality, he was actually right. And so this is what they're doing now. They're making you believe that having all these votes up front somehow is making the process longer. Common sense says it's the opposite, right? I mean, we know this. And you and I have talked about what they did through the pandemic to change this, and they want to change it even further and cement it. That's what they're doing now. Look at Pennsylvania. I mean, what a joke that was, right? So we're seeing it everywhere.
You know, Don, and I got to tell you, let me see. Oh, that was you. I'm trying to pull up the voter files we did this before the election. And here's where this is problematic. One of the main things that they lied to people about was, that we're just doing, and Trump didn't help with this because he was right about the general idea of it, but he would say specific things incorrectly. All right. So there's nothing wrong with mail-in ballots per se. I mean, again, in Florida, in Arizona, widespread. But why did Florida do that? They did that because we had a high senior population. That's why we did it. And the difference was in Florida, we did not send out unsolicited ballots. And why does that matter? This was the difference. And here's point one that we had been showing for months. Somebody actually found a video of me. It was May of 2020. That's how early I jumped on this. And I just didn't have the voice I have now. So unfortunately, it didn't resonate. But here was the difference. Everyone got a ballot. Everyone gets a ballot. In prior years, ballots must be requested, and inactive voters must update their info. Even deceased, change of address flags, and other inactive voters will receive ballots and ballot requests. Those ballots will go out. In a state like Nevada that we're talking about now, that was one of the primary problems because what we did in that state was, concentrate in the blue areas of Clark County, more loose, balloting measures where we would send out these unsolicited ballots. And the problem with that, which is what I was trying to show here, is that you have in this state, Clark County, let's just call it 7 in 10. About 70% of the vote, it comes from Clark County. And yet it's 82, 83% of the dirty voter roll problem. What do I mean by that? People change of address flags, inactive voters that, their record would have to be updated in order for them to be valid and legitimate. Deceased is not, they're always going to be there, folks. We don't maintain our voter records in real time, unfortunately, or at least closer to real time. When you lose grandma and grandpa, the last thing you're thinking of doing is calling the Secretary of State or the clerk, the registrar, whatever you call it. It's the supervisor of elections in Florida, we call it. You're not going to call them and say, hey, we just lost grandma or grandpa. Please remove them from the voter rolls. I mean, you're dealing with, funeral arrangements, you're grieving. You just don't do that. So it takes time for the system to catch up. So it was, and in Pennsylvania, that was the same thing, Don, with them doing it the way they did it. That was the problem. Philadelphia does not represent the same share of the vote that it does the dirty. Their share of the dirty voter records is disproportionately higher than their share of the vote statewide. So it made this problem a problem that benefited one side and hurt another. And so even if all sides wanted to participate in something sinister, it wouldn't matter, because one side's areas are significantly more problematic than the others. So if Washoe County wanted to do it, if Elko County wanted to do it, and play games, it wouldn't matter, because Clark County is disproportionately a larger problem. There are more records that you could be, I'm trying to walk the fence here, but everybody knows what I'm saying. I'm trying to walk the line here, but everybody knows what I'm saying. And again, I don't have to show the voter record because I've done this before, but this is a great state to show what I mean, because the issue was not, is every county doing the same thing? It wasn't. Clark County in that state, they put a moratorium on a codified ban on ballot harvesting. And not only did they put a moratorium on it in Clark County, they used the taxpayers' money to fund it. I mean, they actually used taxpayers' money, $330,000 down payment, to make sure the apparatus was in place only in that part of the state. To me, that is a gross violation of Bush v. Gore. Gross. It's a gross violation of equal protection. This is everyone has to be treated equally, and they were not. That's just true. I mean, people can try to play around with their little fake fact checks all they want, but the fact of the matter is they did not have the same standards in Elko that they had in Clark. And even if they did, again, it wouldn't matter. I'm not talking about total number of votes here, folks. I'm talking about disproportionately. It was, a bigger total vote share in Clark is 70%, but there's 80+% of the problematic records on the voter rolls. So it's just, and then when you see this, Don, 3 hours, people supposedly waiting online, then again, at the very least, you're incompetent. At the very worst, you're trying to do something and you want it to be normalized. And the media, for God's sake, they really are the most negative force in this country at this moment. I really do believe that they are, because without them, they would never be able to do this, Don. Did you see the USA Today? And I have hammered them over their fake fact checks over and over again. You and I just talked about it on your show on Saturday. USA Today, to this day, has that fake fact check up. Right now, Donald Trump said that Hillary Clinton and Democrats supported unfettered abortion up until the point of baby's birth. They said that was not true. We know it is true. We now know we have Roe v. Wade, this debate we're doing now. Roe v. Wade protects second trimesters. The Supreme Court has been basically cowardice to weigh in a third trimester. It looks like they're going to do it now. But the truth is, any challenge to Roe has been rejected by the left because they don't want to have any restrictions. So of course they support unfettered abortion up until the point of birth. Don, USA Today to this day still has that fake fact check up. They just had to fire, and I'm going to pull it up here. Let me get it. I brought up the Rasmussen generic ballot. But I'm going to pull it up. There it is right here from the New York Post. And I hate doing this with the New York Post. They have so many ads. StreamYard can't stand it. Between them and RCP, StreamYard's going to glitch on me. All right. Gabriela Miranda. People, you may know her. She covered basically what's trending on social media. What's trending? What's hot right now in America? This is like, what was his name? Glass. And then they had the other one, Blair, at the New York Times. Jason Blair, I think it was, at the New York Times. But then you have Stephen Glass, I think his name was. These two journalists were the worst example of just fake journalism, folks. Glass wrote for, it was a liberal magazine. It's not The Nation. Maybe, oh man, it may be The Nation, actually. But anyway, he was high society, loved him, right? He was the hottest thing going. He wrote the fake story about the CPAC and the drug use by the kids at CPAC was not true. Miranda is basically their version of it. And I'm not going to pull it up because, for crying out loud, it's just going around in a circle, and I really don't want to risk getting booted here. But the fact is, 23 articles have been removed from USA Today after they found out that basically she was just writing fake articles. And somebody had questioned one thing in a story. They had to try to ask USA Today and the reporter for a comment, like so-and-so is denying this, whatever. They went through all of her work and all of these people associated with her stories, all of these events that she did. They fabricated them, Don. And you and I have talked about this before. Don't these people have editorial processes anymore? Like, folks, for those of you, Don remembers I was an assistant editor at a news site years ago. That's how Don and I met. And, Don wrote the process that I put these writers through. Where's your, what are your sources? I got to fact check this. That was what I just took a job years ago to do that. And even a brand new news organization with almost no funding still had a fact-checking department and an editorial process. It's like these major media outlets now just don't have it, Don.
Yep.
They're not doing it, man.
Yeah, really, you know, and not even, you don't even have to look at the information. Just look at the way these things are written and the way they show up on there. Every other word misspelled, and I mean, it's like a third grader wrote it to begin with, but then nobody's checking on it. It's just, I mean, it is so out of control at this point. Sources, my favorite one still is always going to be a source familiar with the thinking of Mitt Romney said. What the hell does that mean?
Oh, the hell does that mean?
Familiar with the thinking of. That's insane. Yeah, it's such a joke at this point. And it's the big push, right? For everybody wants the clicks. They want to be the first one out there. And I get all that. I get the speed and the urgency and all those kind of things, but you still have an obligation to make sure what you're putting out there is real, is true, is based on something, not just completely fabricated out of thin air. It's just so out of control at this point.
Yeah, and guys, just to let you know, when I'm doing these, without Laura, I generally just look through your comments to see if I can find question marks. So if I miss you, or if you didn't put the question mark in, go ahead and do it. Because it flies by so quick. I'm trying to grab when I just see a question mark. So get your questions in, and Don and I would be happy to answer them. All right, Don, I have to be, I'll come back to, can Virginia 10 be flipped this year? I think the answer to that is yes. All right, which we can get into a little bit more detail, but you're looking at an average 12-point shift in a state like Virginia. It's very much right on par with that average. When we polled, we were dead on with Glenn Youngkin, with the electorate, everything. That last one, we did think he was going to take like a little bit bigger of a lead, Don, like 2.5, something like that, almost 3 points. But in the end, generally, it looked like around a 12-point shift. Virginia 10, 7, they were very competitive. And 10 surprised me, really surprised me. Now, there are new districts since then, but it was interesting to me that 10 was even that close. And I do think this year, looking at some of the results I'm seeing all around the country, it's what happens when these white voters that they have attracted lately, Don, get hurt by the economy, and they can't be counted on to be part of your base. They really do, swing back and forth. you know, what do you know, I guess my point is, what do you think though, the impact of some of these laws and some of these, they're not even rollovers. I mean, Republicans are participating in these betrayals. You know, do you think, like I do, that this can have a tremendous impact? I mean, what good is it if you win some of those voters over, Don, but then you depress your base, or somebody like who really is big on the Second Amendment, you know, has been teaching their kid forever to be responsible with weapons and with firearms, and then you know, they tell him his 20-year-old son can no longer buy a rifle. I mean, this is, I have gone over these numbers ad nauseum. There's only downside to Republicans to do this stupid stuff, and here they do it.
Yeah, and I heard you talking earlier about Governor DeSantis, who I really like Governor DeSantis, but we've got that he never overturned that. He never made any attempt to overturn the age limit requirement. But the big one for me actually is the red flag laws, and a lot of people don't understand. So there's only X number of states that have red flag laws.
Me too.
In 2020, there were 5,000 seizures of people's firearms. So apparently there was 5,000 people in these few states, 4 states, whatever it is, 5. There were 5,000 people really that needed to lose their right, their Second Amendment right. I don't know. But what people need to understand is over half of those were here in Florida. So that's a big concern to me. I mean, when you've got nearly 2,500 confiscations in just one state, that's it should also send a message to everybody, all the other states that are looking to pass these things. So these people don't want, they say they want compromise, right? Well, if we could just get them to come on board with this. I remember I remember when it was bump stocks. Everybody check out the clip of Nancy Pelosi. A reporter asks her, she's at the lectern, reporter asks her, says, you know, a lot of your critics say that this is really just a slippery slope, that if you can get this, then boom, it's game on. She says, I certainly hope it is. These people always tell you where they're really at on all these issues. So any kind of compromise with these people, you're never going to make these people happy. Rick Scott, you and I've talked about this. He was involved in all this stuff, right? This all happened because of Rick Scott, who actually sued the NRA. He sued the NRA. It was never enough, though. You heard the David Hoggs and that's stupid. Oh, that's not a they're going to complain no matter what you do. The left is all or nothing at this point. And we've all got to understand that. I always talk about how we're at war with them because they've declared it on us. And just remember, it is all or nothing. There is no such thing as a compromise with the left anymore.
Yeah, amen, man. That says it all. It really does. I mean, it doesn't even matter what Rick Scott did. He betrayed his voters. And by the way, maybe Rick, that's why you came in so much further below Ron DeSantis, even though Ron had 7 candidates in the damn race. You know, but in any event, I think that it's not ever going to be enough, and there's only downside. So it just makes no sense. It makes no sense. You screw over your voters to appease people who are unappeasable. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. That's it. End of story. The USA, the Suffolk poll. All right, people are asking about with this Fetterman up by 9. Mastriano was actually only down by 4 in that poll. Mm-hmm. This is why I criticized Josh Krashnar, or whatever the hell his name is, from the National Journal. He's supposed to be their little poll guru. He's always wrong. He even right about a few weeks before the 2020 election, he took a poll from Metro News in West Virginia, and they were horribly wrong in 2016. They showed only like a 10-point lead for Donald Trump, and he was like, "This is a big problem for the Appalachia region." Like, he extrapolated that tiny crap poll to mean everything about Appalachia states, and he was wrong. This is why I'm so critical of him and others who do this repeatedly, because he is just as bad as the bad pollster, because the pollster can do whatever they want. If he's not elevated, or she is not elevated by those voices in the media, then it's not going to do any damage. And there is damage to be done when people like him do what they do. There's grave damage they're doing to my industry. I quote tweeted him too and said, "You have, after all of these polling misses, especially in the Midwest and in Florida, after all of these polling misses, you have no idea why it could be that Oz is doing so badly among whites. You have no idea. He's got no clue, even though it's very obvious. They overrepresent, and probably overrepresent educated voters, metro voters. They underrepresent represent or undersample, working class voters. In the Rust Belt particularly, this is a major problem because of the social desirability bias we've been measuring now since before 2020. I don't think the poll's not good. It's not a good poll. That's also why they had McAuliffe winning until the very end. They did not see that Youngkin was going to outperform even Donald Trump in the Shenandoah Valley, in the mountain area. They just didn't see it. They didn't see how well he was going to do in like what is that one? Chesterfield? Because they just can't reach those people. Their methodology itself is flawed. Those people do not like to take live caller interview polls. That's why we've basically abandoned it altogether at this point. It is the most inaccurate at this point. I don't care what anybody says. It is just the case. We probably would have had Biden ahead in Minnesota by like 16 points if we only relied on live caller polling, Don. If we left out the texting and or digital in any form, then Biden would have had a ridiculous, unpublishable lead in the state of Minnesota. But because we did it the way we did it, we still overestimated him, but we were close. It was 10 points, and it ended up, 8 or 7, something like that. But still, without that, we would have crashed and burned in that state, and Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and Wisconsin, and Iowa, and Ohio, and Florida. I mean, they're not learning because they don't want to learn. There's a lot of money in live caller, and if you cut out live caller, you're cutting out an entire sector of that industry, which is the call center. All right. And there's some big bucks to be made there. And people just don't want to do that. They want it benefits the money in this industry to continue the lie that live caller is the gold standard. It is not the gold standard. It is crap. It is basically as crappy as IVR used to be, or as they said IVR was. And I think IVR is even still beneficial to reach certain older audiences. You give them anonymity, and they don't mind taking a live caller poll as long as they don't have to speak to some demeaning interviewer who's not trained properly. But the bottom line is, should have tipped you all immediately when that percentage of the sample told you Donald Trump was their number one voting motivation. That immediately should have told you way too much Delaware, not enough everywhere, and that didn't tip them. And I'll tell you, again, 500, Don, in a sample size in the state of Pennsylvania is outrageous. Mm-hmm. Outrageous. And Republicans are going to outvote Democrats in the state of Pennsylvania. So they did this again in Virginia. They had it. They wouldn't relinquish the D+3 sample in their poll in Virginia, in Suffolk, I'm talking about. They wouldn't relinquish it when it was very clear it was either going to be even or even maybe R+1. And they just wouldn't give it up, man. And if you looked at their regional breakdown, had they come around to reality, they wouldn't have been that far off. McAuliffe barely lost that election. Let's be real. He lost it, but he barely lost it. And this idea that Mastriano was unelectable, you all spoke way too freaking soon. Mm-hmm. Right? Don and I told you, especially there's these Twitter DeSantis group crap that hated Doug Mastriano. Yep. And they were like all over him. That's a load of crap. All politics is local. Tip O'Neill, he was really talking about gubernatorial elections because that nationalizing of a governor's race is difficult to do. And Mastriano is talking about things that the voters of Pennsylvania care about. And Shapiro's kind of radical. He's radical. The voters of Pennsylvania do not want an amendment protecting abortion up until, the point of birth. They do not want to run energy out of their country. They don't want their elections to continue for 7 days after Election Day. They don't want it. Yep. Early voting wasn't even a thing in the state of Pennsylvania until 2020. People don't even realize this. Mm-hmm. They didn't support it. Every time they tried to get it through the legislature, it failed. Because even Democratic lawmakers, statewide, Democratic lawmakers knew it was unpopular in the Keystone State. People didn't want to do that. They did not want to open that can of worms. A lot of Rust Belt voters, a lot of Rust Belt states, Don, never warmed up to early voting. Never warmed up. And Mastriano is a fantastic retail guy. You meet him and you're like, ooh, this isn't the nut job the media's telling me is. This is a cool dude. Right, Don? You've met him. You've interviewed him.
Yep.
You know, it's just not reality.
Yep.
Now, I think, in the end, the debates, they're going to try to skew against him. The moderator themselves will bring up some of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They will. The moderator themselves. But, I'm not surprised Doug is outperforming. Oz, I just don't think those numbers are right. I honestly believe the Q poll more than I believe the Suffolk poll. Mastriano probably has a lead. And Oz and Fetterman are probably like tied at this point, because Jim Lee, he's been polling generically, generic Republican or generic Democrat for governor or Senate. And Republicans have led the whole way, but the governor has led slightly more. And that's because it's, voting preference isn't as rigid at the state level. Party preference isn't as rigid. Republican candidates for governor do better than they do at the federal level. And that's just true. And Democratic candidates can win the governorship in Louisiana, John Bell Edwards, but there's no way they're going to have it senator. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, right? It's just the way it is. So what do you think about that, with Doug, especially with Doug himself? What do you think of that?
There's a lot of problems with all of that, with all the polling and all of the stuff that they're doing in Pennsylvania. And how many times?
500, Don? Minimum sample size for us is 800 in Pennsylvania, and we always go over it.
But we've talked about this several times, Rich. This is the narrative-driven poll. Why is it happening? Number one, on the Mastriano side, with Doug Mastriano, they thought it was going to be easy to wipe him out, right? Because he's the big Q guy. He was at the Capitol on January 6th. They were going to do all this stuff. It's not working. It's not playing out for him. And Shapiro, like you said, he's a radical, and people are moving away from that. There's obviously a big trend moving away from the far left stuff because they've seen it. It's ugly, doesn't work, crime goes up. Look at all the problems that we have. So people are rejecting that. I mean, we saw that in Texas with Myra Flores, right? But narrative driven. Here's the big problem they have, because the big race for them is the Fetterman race. Because he's the guy, he's the big strong guy, and he was gonna, he's their John Wayne, I guess, or whatever it is. Now they've got a situation where this guy's, and I don't wish ill health on anybody. I hope he has full recovery, but he's out of it right now. He can't do anything. He's in his basement or in bed, laying in bed somewhere, or whatever he's doing. I mean, I hope he gets better again, but they've got to overcome that, because they expected this guy just to come out and boom, this one was going to be over. That was going to be the really easy one. Beating Mastriano was going to be easy too. None of these things are playing out for him. So what you've got to do is you've got to put together a poll. You've got to do something to replace the campaigning, because it takes work to campaign. You've got to work it. You've got the ground game. You've got he needs to be all over TV. He needs to be doing interviews and putting out his positions, all these kind of things. He can't. So here comes the media, Mighty Mouse. Here I come to save the day. And they're going to come in and they're going to tell you, don't worry, everything's cool. He'll be back on the campaign trail, blah, blah, blah. Here's some big mistakes that they made this week, and I'm talking about the Fetterman campaign. So, and this proves also that it's a narrative-driven poll. So you didn't just have the poll come out. You had all this media stuff come out talking about how the conservatives were making his health an issue. No conservative said anything. I haven't heard Oz or anybody say anything about his health, except hoping he recovers and saying the same thing I said. I don't wish ill health on anybody. So they come out with these fake stories about how the conservatives are attacking over his health, and then they send his. So this is all the media doing this at the same time, folks. That is to verify and back up this narrative-driven poll. Then they said the campaign sends his wife out to say, "Oh no, he's great."
And Don, health is an issue. Health is a legitimate issue.
And it's not
legitimate
an issue. And exactly, it's a legitimate issue. It's not because anybody on either side made it an issue. Now they've made it an issue, though, to try to gain advantage out of it. It's not going to play well. Again, I said at the beginning of that, he's like their John Wayne guy. He's the big, strong guy. Well, a health issue, a stroke, different things like this can make it. Puts a huge dent in this. So they have a lot of problems. I mean, that's what they're stuck with right now going forward. The stuff against Doug Mastriano, not sticking. He's coming across as a genuine guy. He's working hard. They've got a lot of problems in Pennsylvania on the left.
By the way, I will say there are some things you can look in that poll and see, and both Republicans doing surprisingly well in the Northeast part of that state. That's supposed to be the Democratic stronghold. You have Biden town. Well, right now, Mastriano's carrying Biden town. So, I don't know where that it's like some of this stuff. And I got to bring up Jim Lee again because he did this with the New York Times poll. Like, if you have Allegheny County representing so much of the West that you have the Democratic candidate winning 2-1 in the western region of the state, you're doing something or you did something wrong. So what you're essentially saying is they either win Allegheny way, way, way more than usual, or Democrats are competitive in places like Greene County. That's nuts. That is totally crazy. You overrepresented not just Allegheny. You overrepresented the most Democratic parts of Allegheny because Republicans are doing fairly well in Allegheny County these days, or Trump Republicans are. They get 40% of the vote. It's not like they're getting wiped out there like they used to, Don, 66-33. That isn't happening in Allegheny anymore. So if I see a poll where I see margins like that in the entire West, then there's something wrong. And again, that's probably because it's 500 people. Its sample size is too small. I went back and looked at it. We have a big data poll. We have minimum sample size requirements. We never even follow the minimums. We go above them all the time. Pennsylvania is 800, and I looked to see the last time we did one that was 800. Never. Florida, by the way, now that was increased, but it used to be 800. It's now 12. We never do that. It's like always more than that. Or at least around, we upped the Florida one after 2020, but it was 800 in 2020. And I think we were doing like 12 to 15, sometimes 2,000 in Pennsylvania. When we did the Mid-Atlantic Battleground poll, each state was 1,000. Each state was 1,000. So it just, the Rust Belt poll, Iowa was less because Iowa's obviously a lot smaller. But every other state had at least 800 responses. At least, you can't poll a state that's that big. I'm sorry. That's one of the major problems in the polling. Once randomization, true randomization went out the window, which it's gone now. It is because we don't have a way to reach everyone the same way. So you can't have true randomization. Once everyone stopped being able to be reached by a landline, randomization was gone. Once everyone was stopped, if you go to the voter file alone and you say, I want a targeted random sample, meaning targeted just registered voters eligible to vote, you already killed randomization. You already killed it. True randomization. So then it becomes about representation. Is each group represented correctly in the electorate? And there is no doubt you cannot represent everybody with 500 sample in Pennsylvania.
And here's something that I don't know that we've even actually ever talked about this. So when you do your polling, and so you set your minimum size, right? So my minimum is 800, and then you get 1,200, you get 1,500. Think about this, everybody. So who trusts a lot of these other polling places right now? We're talking about how it's narrative driven, how it's they do it for a purpose. So you're telling me that they sent out 500 and they got exactly 500 back. Where's their cutoff point? And then what do they do? Okay, so if they're shooting for 500 and they end up with 800, 1,000, whatever it is, how do they determine what actually ends up being the 500? You know what I'm saying? People, we don't trust the FBI, the CIA. I mean, all these agencies, CDC, on and on and on. Why would we trust these people? We can't trust science because that's what they do. That's how we ended up with the Michael Mann's hockey stick. Well, if we just take this out and throw it away, then whoa, it's a hockey stick. Look at that. We're all going to die. So, I mean, why would we trust these guys any more than that? If they're saying 500, they got more than 500. I know they got more than 500. So how did they decide which of the 500 go in? Because you can change the whole game by that.
And as you know, two things. One, you should be explaining that, right? Which is what we do.
Right.
We should be explaining that. And then two, the second thing is, generally speaking, the prompts that we've had to work on over the years, you've seen how we develop questionnaires. because of that phenomena that basically people have lumped us in as pollsters with the media, and they don't trust us. So you have to tell people in the start of that interview a few things. Otherwise, you're going to lose out on certain groups of people right off the jump. They're just not going to want to talk to you. And I hate to say it, but if you identify yourself, I'm Rich and I'm calling from the Suffolk poll. Can I speak to am I speaking to a registered voter in the household? Whatever, however they do it. Mm-hmm. Some people know this is USA Today. Screw you. You know what I mean? And that's a problem, Don. It is. They'll not admit it, but it's true. And we really let people know, listen, we try to push civic duty on them and everything because we're trying to basically shame them into doing it. And it's just sad that that's the way it is now because, there's a lot of good questions here that I'll get to, but Don's making a really good point, folks, because I can show you the reaction to people. Who is this? Who do you work for? I mean, you have to identify yourself. That's number one. I don't know how some of these people are getting away with not identifying themselves, especially if I'll see a questionnaire that doesn't identify themselves, yet they claim they're doing peer-to-peer texting. Okay, so then what was the prompt you used to get people to click on the link if you peer-to-peer tested them, all right, or getting them to respond if it's a back and forth peer-to-peer, not just click on the online questionnaire? What did you say to them? Because if you didn't identify yourself, you're violating 10 TLC, and you may have said something that could get certain high interest voters to want to take it, but others not to. Certain Republican voters may want to take it with some pollster while someone else might not to. The prompt to get people to participate is so damn important. And when anytime we end up at a flat number like that, we always show the weights. Listen, we're at 500 on the dot, which would never be because it's not 500, but we're on 2,000 on the dot because we waited like this. But you'll see, it rarely happens. It rarely happens. We're always at like 2003, 2041. I mean, that's just the way it goes because your weights really shouldn't be, removing anyone from the sample. It should just be, if you need to weigh them down, so they're overrepresented, so you want to weigh them down. It doesn't mean you're removing anyone from the survey. You're just weighing down their impact on the overall results. So really good question. I think a lot of people across Getter, Locals, and YouTube were all saying, can we trust the FBI not to indict Doug Mastriano for participating and for attending January 6th? The answer is no. The FBI is deeply corrupt and they will do whatever. Look at what they did in Michigan. This is crazy. They are a criminal organization at this point. I'm sorry, Don. I have no respect for that agency whatsoever. The next presidential candidate I vote for, I want to hear things like, I'm dismantling ATF. I'm either at least completely restructuring the FBI. Like that's what I want to hear. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels. We're just spinning our wheels. You couldn't get rid of the Bolsheviks without getting rid of the Stasi. You know what I mean? And that's it. They're not gone because you elected someone else. They're still there running big swaths of the government. They didn't even listen to Donald Trump. George from The Gaggle was on the show earlier this week, and we were just talking about this. The one area Trump failed miserably was that he could not get his arms around the Justice Department. This idea that the Justice Department is independent or something. It's a load of crap. He's the president. He's the executive. And he's the head of the executive branch. They are under him in the executive branch. The founders did not construct any form of government that was in the, or any bureau or agency. They would have foresaw nobody or no agency being above the presidency. That's crap. That's your voice right there. That's your representation in a big, bloated, overreaching executive branch. The last thing any person who values self-governance would want is some agency believing that they're above that branch, above your elected sovereign, which you are the sovereign in this, supposedly, in this system of government. You, the voter, you are the sovereign. And your president is simply your elected sovereign representation. And he is supposed to have control over all of it. And he doesn't. Obviously, it's out of control. So, it's not. And by the way, he'll need good people in the House of Representatives and the Senate to back him up on that. Because we wouldn't have a Department of Education right now if Republicans were what they said they were. Ronald Reagan was knifed in the back by his own damn party. That's what happened on the Department of Education. Another thing I got to get to is Ed Henry said DeSantis is calling rich donors, telling them that he wants to run for president. Raheem Kasim, etc., others fanning flames. Your thoughts on this? Look, when we were in Naples, I'm telling you, but it's not that his mind couldn't be changed. You know, if Trump is doing the same things wrong, I could foresee someone else, including Ron DeSantis, stepping up to say, I'm going to offer a different alternative. I just think it's not wise. If Trump runs, it's not wise because I don't think he's going to win and he could hurt himself. I think that it's just better if that's the way the party wants to go, then really don't make a fight between these two men. Make it some kind of an arrangement where, you know, Trump just doesn't run or something. Here's the deal, though, with this, Don. The people are saying he will be irrelevant if he doesn't run in 2024. That's nonsense. Because the deal would be this. You're not going to serve a second term if you're reelected. So make me your vice president, and then, you know, I am the heir apparent. That is the smartest way to go about this without fighting. It really is, because his time is not going to be, he's not going to be irrelevant, Don, by 2028. Trump decides he's not going to run again because he wouldn't be able to. He's too old. He'll be too old, right? And then you just say, hey, Ron is it. You want to continue MAGA? Ron is it. That would be the smartest way without fighting to go about this. However, I can understand somebody like Ron DeSantis looking at some of the moves, I don't know, let's say endorsing Kevin McCarthy and saying, I can't get behind this. Because in case Trump didn't learn the first time around, these are the people who screwed you. And, you know, so what? Kevin can raise money. So what? So can Donald Trump. Who cares? Where is Kevin raising that money from anyway? Big tech, which he then prostitutes himself to, all to the detriment of the party, the voters of the party. Because who do they in turn target? Us. Mm-hmm. So, you know, don't give me this crap. He raises money. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And when you endorse him, if you don't get involved in other races, then you endorse his people by proxy. You do. And you hurt good people who are running on your agenda. So, you know, I don't know what your thoughts are here. I do know some of your personal thoughts. You share what you want. But I'm saying, like, I don't know how many people are going to want to get on board with the same merry-go-round if that's the plan, Don. You know, I mean, really. And that one of those people may be Ron DeSantis. You know, I mean, we'll see. But I can tell you this. He believes the president got the shtick. And, you know, that he's like basically, yeah, you know, I don't, go ahead. I'll let you go.
I think DeSantis has a lot of patience. I think that they've already made their arrangements. You know some things, I know some things. They've already kind of decided how this is going to play out. This is the important point of this is, and I've been saying this for a really long time now, they don't have anything to offer. And I'm talking the left. I'm also talking the never Trumpers. They can't offer Ron DeSantis as a never Trumper because he's not a never Trumper. So nobody else has anything to offer. The only hope they have, a Trump DeSantis ticket would be, I think, almost unbeatable. I mean, it would be very, very strong. They've got to create that chasm, right? They want to create some infighting between Ron DeSantis,
they do.
Donald Trump, because Donald Trump doesn't go around he doesn't have nicknames for Ron DeSantis. He likes Ron DeSantis. They like each other. So they need to break that up somehow, or at least create the illusion that there's dissatisfaction, that they're fighting behind the scenes and that it's really ugly. And they'll have all kinds of stuff. They'll come out where Trump, you know, punched him, or, you know, God knows what they're going to come up with. Crap. They are, because they need to create at least the appearance, the illusion of a divided ticket there, or a divided, you know, party, because that's what's going on in their party. They always accuse the others of what's happening inside their own tent, right? So I think just be very careful when you hear these stories. There's going to be a bunch of stories that are going to come out and say, oh, somebody familiar with the thinking of overheard, what, all kinds of garbage. And we're going to see it, and they're going to really ramp it up. I think as soon as the midterms are over, they're going to go all in on that. So just be cognizant of the fact that that's what they need to do. They need to create a divide and make you, because it's about you. It's about making you pick one side or the other.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, even in case people didn't see it, even with their D+9 poll, which is outrageous, it's not reality. Even with their D+9 poll, YouGov has Trump up today for the first time ever. It's Trump over Biden by 2 nationally. So we put out our latest one, which I'll bring up again. Some of it was a little bit of a tightening, but we also did do a little bit stricter of a weighting, variable for the registered voter screen. I mean, Don, he's just getting his butt kicked everywhere. I mean, he's just getting I didn't even publish some of the results for the other candidates because the also rans are getting destroyed. Pete Buttigieg is not a viable presidential candidate. So you have all of these people who ran last time. They have no prayer, none. And I don't see how something like that changes because too many people tell us, that what Trump has going for him is that people remember what it was like under him. And that's the problem. And so if you're not rabidly ideological, then you got a problem. I mean, if you're not rapidly ideological, then you have the thinking that things were just so much better under Donald Trump. The only group where he hasn't made significant gains is Asian voters, where he was still at like 27%. But there are just so many of these, like what you would think would be Joe Biden voters who they don't want him. They don't want him, so that's it. So it was a 7-point lead with us, which I just never, and this, Don, because we talk a lot. I never even thought this was possible. I never thought a Republican presidential candidate would lead nationally like this ever, like at least for the foreseeable future, just because of, where the Electoral College votes are on the map. And, they have the advantage in the Electoral College if they keep the working class coalition. I just don't see how. I couldn't believe it. I'm thinking for at least 10, 20 years, Democrats are going to win the popular vote. But that Hispanic shift did it. That changed everything. And when you have white voters move back just an inch, just a little bit, and then you have Hispanics tighten the way they've tightened, and Joe Biden sitting at like 47% of the Hispanic vote, maybe +7 Biden. That's it. That's it. That's what does it. That's it. It's just, and by the way, somebody had brought up, aren't you basically echoing the 2012 autopsy? And no, I'm not, because the 2012 autopsy had a prescription for reaching out to those Hispanic voters. And that was not the correct prescription. The correct prescription was economic nationalism and cultural conservatism. Republicans were never economic nationalists, or at least those the Romney ones were not. So when America First and fighting against wokeism, I think Ron DeSantis is going to carry Miami-Dade in November. I do. I think he's going to carry Miami-Dade. And I remember I don't know if you heard the beginning of the show, but I had been all over the place. It was a real laugh, Don, to watch everybody on Tuesday after Myra Flores won that race, to watch everybody on Tuesday pretend as if they freaking saw all of this coming. These, it. I went all over, told everybody, and I got laughed at. I got laughed at, Don, by everybody who not named Don Smith, Steve Bannon, and Steve Cortez. Nobody else believed me. Nobody else believed me. They all believed Frank Luntz. No. The only way you're going to win some Hispanic votes, is by, offering them citizenship. What the hell are you talking about? The ones who can vote are citizens. They have totally different priorities, idiot. Totally different priority. Totally different. And the stuff that you cave to every day, they hate. They feel as a threat to their culture, Yeah, I don't think, and I've seen a lot of this, so I want to put this up and get your take. I don't think Tulsi is what everybody has cracked her up to be. So this one says DeSantis Tulsi unity ticket for 2024. Tulsi has moved noticeably to the right and can focus on war and peace issues, while Iran focuses on domestic side. I don't see Tulsi anywhere near the right, because I frankly, if you see the problem with the military industrial complex, but you don't see the problem with the administrative state, then you're not right. She's a gun grabber. She'll take your guns. She'll socialize your medicine completely. She's just not. And by the way, Gaylord, I got to give you a hat tip for that, because those are the two biggest things right there where she's not going to jive with the base. She's just not. You could actually hurt rural areas of Wisconsin. You could hurt your vote in places like that where you need to like win the evangelical vote 3-1, which Trump did. You need to do that to win those states. She is not right wing. And I mean, I'm glad to see her on board when it comes to the Intel state, Don. But what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, totally. I agree with you. In fact, it's been a little painful here lately with she's like all over Fox News now and taking over every show on there, and I don't get it. I don't have anything against Tulsi. I think she speaks her mind. She tells you where she's at. I see her in the same light as Bernie Sanders that way. At least you know that that's really where she's coming from. She doesn't hide her views, and that's all great.
Yeah, she's anti-Christian, right?
I always have a mistrust of leftists who, because the way they're treated by their own party, all of a sudden they're on the right. I always have a problem with that. So what we're seeing with Bill Maher now, I mean, a lot of these people that we're seeing this stuff come out, Russell Brand and all these folks who are waking up because they're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm getting screwed on this deal too now. But so I don't know. I think there's a case to be made there that was made in that question was the unity party. I mean, I guess that's the thing. But with as bad as things are and as worse as they're going to get going forward under this administration, we don't really need to even do that, right? I mean, people want a little bit more, I think, a little bit more decisive action, and I don't know that ticket would necessarily portray that. I think it would be a confusing ticket, I guess is what I'm saying.
And which Robinson? I just want to ask somebody. I can't see. It's just all stars across the board. What Robinson are you talking about? So somebody said Trump Robinson ticket would with the black church and the black community, that they were hearing ramblings on something like that. I just don't know which Robinson you're talking about. But I saw your super chat. If you just reply, then I'll get to it. But I just don't know which one you're talking about. And then Tony says, can we talk? We got, I don't know how I missed this. We should talk about this. But I'm glad I left it with Don, left it for talking about with Don, because Don does his research. Can you all talk about the Muckraker PAC and Boebert? What's behind it? Also explore the talent right-wing activist connection. Very suspect info. Listen, I heard this is totally false. I heard this thing about Boebert is totally false. What are your thoughts on this, or what have you heard, if anything? Because I did ask somebody who knows Cruz, who knows her, just told me it was completely bogus. Mm-hmm. And I wrapping my head around how you could lie about something like this. Mm-hmm. 2 abortions as a call girl, a conservative Christian, look, and people make mistakes, but conservative Christians weren't always conservative Christians. I know a lot of people who are the most devout people now, and saved, but certainly were not. They're angels throughout their life. But this seems to me, you release like something like Muckraker PAC did, you better put evidence forward. Mm-hmm. You better put evidence forward, and there's no evidence in this. There's no evidence, Don. Mm-hmm. Well, we conducted a thorough, long investigation, and this is what we found. By the way, you said it before, a person, a witness that we vetted, who's very credible. Mm-hmm. Who the hell is it? The hell you talk? Anybody could print. I could go to WordPress doc right now. I mean, or Microsoft Word right now and print out a doc with a whole bunch of fancy, nice sounding BS too. Who is this person? Was it someone from Planned Parenthood who thinks they saw another Lauren Boebert? Like, how do you even know if you saw in your abortion records, it says Lauren Boebert in Colorado? How do you know it's the same person?
Yeah.
You know, I just, Don, this is without evidence to drop something like this.
Yep.
And she didn't even think it was worth really responding. She was just like, wow, this is false. 4 Pinocchios. You all need Jesus. That's what she said. You know, so, I mean, I've met her. She's a bubbly girl, you know, bubbly woman, excuse me. You know, but she doesn't strike me as that.
Now, to me, this reeks of establishment, and I'm talking on the right. This reeks of the establishment leaking something like this. I don't know who she upset or what the deal is here. There's always a story behind all this stuff, right? Why it happens, but this totally reeks of the establishment trying to take her down.
And she was. They named her. They named her after Madison Cawthorn. She was on the list. At least with Cawthorn, they put forward substantial stuff. It was a video of him acting a fool. Look, I think the thing that hurt him the worst was not the video. It was the gun thing, trying to get on a plane with the gun. You insult people like our neighbors, these Western North Carolina people. They're like, why would you do anything to give the left a reason to talk about taking away our guns? You young, immature little, you know, like, yeah, that little child. They were mad, Don. They were mad. They were like, we don't do dumb stuff like this that can give them a reason to attack us and make us look like a fool. That's what did him in. I'm telling you right now.
Oh,
you know it. Our neighbors were all like, you stupid idiot. They were like, you dumb little child. That is how they reacted.
Especially after they said that he put away his childish antics. And then to do so again.
Yeah.
That video was pretty bad too.
It was pretty bad.
The optics were not good.
But I think a lot of people could say, like, you know, dumb young punk, you know, young college idiots. But it with the gun thing, and I'm sure that cost him some votes. But the gun thing, like, hurt him with hardcore people. And by the way, the Robinson that we're talking about was Lieutenant Mark Robertson. He's the Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson in North Carolina. Freaking rock star. Rock star. I just think he would need a higher profile. So a lot of people know him around here. But man, that dude is a rock star. Look at Laura over here. I can't. It pops back up. I'm sorry.
Your muscles are in the way. Richie.
I'm almost there. I'm getting there. Basically, I think it would need a higher profile, and even like some people.
I think though, anybody who gets on a ticket with Donald Trump instantly is going to have a high profile. I mean, you could not know him, and then bam, they're going to shoot up. It's not like Sarah Palin with John McCain, where but anything tied to Donald Trump instantly is going to have a high profile. His reach, everybody's going to be talking about it, and you could really crank up the name recognition overnight on that ticket.
And Joel, you said that the nicest way possible, but Rich is saying he didn't get that pro feeling from her, and there isn't a U.S. military outpost in the world that doesn't have pros within one click of said installation. He's totally right. And I didn't. I got a firecracker feel from her. She's a firecracker, you know. I mean, somebody walked up, they were like, "Hey, Lauren, I want to introduce you to the People's Pundit," and she was like, "Oh, cool," you know. I mean, but she was a serious person, and you know, I mean, guarded. You know, we're not. I just can't. It does right, Joel. It wasn't the pro. You know, a pro when you see a pro. You know them, and especially if you were in the military, they're all over. There's no. It's like obvious almost. But yeah, I like the idea of Robinson. The guy's a rock star, and people love him here, love him. So yeah, I mean, it's good, you know, point. It's a good point. It's, but then you would get a lot of people who were mad that DeSantis isn't on the ticket. You know, and then so Jonathan's saying the DeSantis Massey ticket, he's an ultra populist and reliably anti-interventionist in the Ron Paul tradition. Here's, as Don knows, I absolutely admire Ron DeSantis because of how he handles himself. I really believe Ron DeSantis is in it for the right reason. And what he had said to us at Naples, somebody had asked him, you know, how come you are so proactive? You fight, you just don't seem to care. Like, why is everyone else always backing down and stabbing us in the back? You know, and his answer was just like flawless. It was just like I know where the people are. And I don't give a damn what Politico writes about me. I don't care what the Washington Post writes about me. I don't care what Fox News says about me or CNN says about me. I don't care. I knew, like, for instance, he brought up the transgender and women's sports. I knew the people have my back. I know they do. And I don't give a damn what some elitist living in a cubicle in New York or Washington, D.C. has to think about it. I just don't care. And I know I'm right. So but that all being said, it is risky. There's a risk to it. I don't care what Twitterverse says. It is extremely unique to have the appeal in the Rust Belt the way Donald Trump has as a Republican. It is, folks, outside of even Ohio, which I think, Ron would carry Ohio easily. I think he'd probably carry Iowa easily too, but it may be a little closer. Because there are these people who just seem to really like Donald Trump's attitude, even though you would think it would be an offensive way. Now, take a state, though, like Wisconsin, where Ron DeSantis, I think, would do well in the areas that Ted Cruz carried in the primary against Donald Trump. Because remember, Donald Trump lost Wisconsin. All right. He would do better in those areas. But then there's counties like Juniper, I guess it is,
Juno?
Juno, thank you, and Rusk and Polk, and then the Northwest areas. Democrats have two strongholds still in there that Trump would decimate their margins in. But look at Jim Hagedorn, he got freaking clobbered there. Yeah, he pulled it off by an inch, but his buddy didn't because they got killed up there in the Northwest. It is a risk. No matter what people say, look. It's the same thing as the left trying to say that Kamala Harris would have working class appeal in Michigan. They didn't know that, and I think Ron obviously would kill Kamala Harris. They do.
Who said yesterday that, what would they say? Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg ticket would be unstoppable.
Unbelievable. Unstoppable. Together in the polling, they can't get 50% of the vote. Right?
I'm hoping they do it.
If I added Pete Buttigieg with Kamala Harris, they still would be in danger of losing the Electoral College against Donald Trump. That's how bad they poll. I'm not kidding, man. I can show you. It's so bad. It's so bad. So bad, I didn't publish it, Don. And I'm like, where's the leaners? They got any more leaners? Do they have any more leaners? Oh, my God, I can't publish this poll. It was just
a real dream ticket.
It was a real dream for Donald Trump. Jeez.
Anybody.
But it's this Midwest appeal that he has that in Pennsylvania, it's like, in Michigan, that George Bush came this close, but he couldn't do it. Wisconsin. I mean, we've been here before all of these years. Mitt Romney put so much into Ohio. He couldn't even carry Ohio. Nothing has changed there, folks, all that much. Like in some other states, we saw massive demographic changes, not in some of these other states. And yet Trump swung them by double digits. And I'm telling you, Bush couldn't do it. He couldn't do. Go back and look at the Bush v. Gore map. Go back and look at the Bush Kerry map. The guy won on the skin of his teeth, a couple thousand votes in Iowa. That's how he won re-election. That's it. I mean, he barely won the state of Ohio. Barely. So nobody's going to tell me it's not a risk. We would have to see how he performed there, how many independents did he bring? Because with Trump, there were signs. He was bringing all these independents into the primaries that were like, I'm either going to vote for Bernie or Trump. And it was like, what? And then in 2020, that overlap was not there anymore because Bernie went just nuts. It just went nuts. On immigration to guns, which he had a coalition in 2016 who were pro-gun, who gun rights, be an A rating from the NRA at the time. They were anti-illegal immigration because they were pro-worker wages. Bernie himself said, I think there are areas where I can work with Donald Trump on trade because he finally gets it. Illegal immigration hurts workers' wages, right? But now Bernie backpedaled on that in the 4 years of Donald Trump because, the party told him, you better shut the hell up. It's over. You lost. Get in line. And he did, because that's why we call him Bend Over Bernie. I mean, he is nobody's champion. So there's a risk there. There is a risk, and DeSantis is a Florida governor. He's a Sun Belt Southern governor. It's not the same electorate. And people bring up Youngkin as an example, Don. Well, again, Youngkin did better with white working class. Youngkin did better in a smaller electorate. That's number one. In a larger electorate, he may not have done that much better. You don't know that. That's number one. Number two, Youngkin is a mid-Atlantic state. They're totally different. Ancestral groups are totally different. You're no longer looking at like only Scott Irish working class, only, because that's what dominates in Western Pennsylvania, Western Virginia and the like. You're looking at Scandinavian, Norwegian, German. They are different. Believe me. The best that Barnes ever told me to do was showcase ancestry in this polling, because people don't seem to get the regional difference. And we did. And we would show people the difference, like Pennsylvania. Obviously, German ancestry is pretty damn important if you want to do that. But again, I just, that's not the same as winning over Norwegian and Scandinavian rural voters who are populist in nature, in Wisconsin. Don, you lived in Wisconsin for years. It was the birthplace of the labor movement, man, the progressive labor movement. And yet Trump competed with those voters. And Bush could not. He could not. And that's what did him in. You're not going to get Franklin County anymore in Ohio. So you got to get it somewhere else. You got to get it in Wood and Trumbull, Mahoney. You know what I mean? You're not going to get this huge margin in Kenosha or Racine anymore. So you got to offset it somewhere else, in Rusk and Polk, and right all the way up to the Northwest, all the way up. And if you don't, you're going to lose. That's it. I mean, it'll be close, but you'll lose. So no one's going to convince me there's not a risk there with anybody else. At least with this is the one thing I will give to Trump, even though the repetition, Don, of the same mistakes is evident to me, which is it's problematic. And I would be lying if I said it did not worry me. He surrounds himself. It's incorrect. It's incorrect.
One thing about this, and I think this is important to point out, is Donald Trump really, let's face it, with everything that went down, there was a lot of tension, a lot of stuff going on around the election time. People thought they were getting rid of crises, right? Because every day there's another crisis. Every day, those were all created. Those were created by the mainstream media, by all these people. It was all these fake things, right? Think about the big lies that they told about him, right? Like the very fine people, and everybody should shoot bleach into their arm, all this stuff. This administration, Joe Biden, has created Donald Trump's platform for 2024. It's not even possible. Even if Joe Biden would have come in and just maintained everything, that it wouldn't be possible for Donald Trump. They've created this for him because all they've got to do is go, well, hey, can you just put it back the way it was? And he's got a track record. Bam, he's got a track record. Otherwise, they would have denied everything he did. Oh, you never accomplished it. You didn't do anything. We're living it. We're living it now. So Joe Biden has actually created a platform for 2024 Donald Trump. Amazing.
Yeah, I think, and I'm going back to try to find that first comment on locals that apparently I missed. But before I do, did you see that Gavin Newsom did join Truth Social to push back on all Trump's lies? He's running for president. What do you think?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about it. And I welcome him. Hey, come on. I'm all about it. It's all about free speech to me. I want more speech, not less. So he thinks he's owning something, or us, I guess, I don't know, by joining up. No, come on board. There's nothing you can say to me that I can't take. So bring it on. He's going to end up owning himself. He's going to look like a fool. I don't know. Bring it on. The more the merrier.
Here's a question too. I went all the way back, and I will wrap it up here soon, guys. But the press secretary and Democrats always seem unprepared. Psaki sucked. This one is worse. Are the press doing a disservice to the Dems by asking them these easy questions rather than helping them? They get flustered when the real question is actually asked. Don, I think they do a disservice to the country. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do think they are, because the fact is, Don, they're not doing them any favors because it's so bad and so evident. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And Jay, I'm looking for your comment, but I can't find it.
Their skin is so incredibly thin right now. Like you couldn't even imagine 10 years ago that anybody's skin could be this thin. But this is why. So yeah, they're doing themselves a complete disservice because they're not ready to answer anything. This guy's popping off at reporters again, right? I'm talking about Biden. I don't want to hear any more of these lies. You're calling the American people now liars, even the ones that voted for you. We're living this. So their skin is so incredibly thin because they don't have to answer these questions. Look at Donald Trump. He'd stand in front of Marine One for an hour and a half sometimes, and he would answer everything. It didn't matter what they said to him, how they said it to him. He didn't care. Boom, boom, boom. Because he didn't have thin skin, right? Look at this guy. This guy can't handle any questions whatsoever except what's your favorite ice cream?
Yeah. He's terrible.
Oh
and
my
this
God.
concept that he was ever nice. Again, he every week does a new example. And we, Don and I have been around a long time. This was never a nice guy. I don't know what the hell anyone's talking about.
Yeah. This new press secretary too. Just let me say this real quick. Wow, what a train wreck. What an absolute
checked all the boxes.
train wreck.
He checked all the boxes and they didn't care about anything else. Same thing with Pete Buttigieg. He checks all the boxes. They don't actually care about the qualifications somebody has for a job, and they run everything into the freaking ground. Everything. I mean, this is you can't govern like this, Don. And that's what scared me about, well, I'm gonna nominate, and then Republicans stupidly confirm a Supreme Court justice based on her gender and race. If you're telling me what Josh Hawley was putting up was not concerning to you, you're a liar.
Yeah.
So
Peppermint Patty was, let's face it, Peppermint Patty was good. She was good at her job. She was able to fire back and seem competent. And but the Cabbage Patch Doll is an absolute train wreck. This is insane.
That's hilarious. Yeah, they can't. I didn't see Barnes on Timcast last night. But yeah, I'll have to check it out. It says Viva Barnes was awesome on Timcast last night. Hope my plug for Rich works. I didn't see it. But I think Robert's been on there at least once before, wasn't he? Or was that his first time? But yeah, I did not see it. But he gave me a shout out. Okay. I'll go and listen to it now while I eat my lunch, which I'm going to do. But before I do that, and then I have to run to the pool guy. Don, definitely we got to chat a little bit later. But tell everybody what you got going on tomorrow.
So, we've got a lot of stuff going on tomorrow. Of course, we'll have you on with the latest numbers that are out there, and we'll talk probably a little bit more about some of this stuff too. Peter Hussey with the latest on national security. I've got former NFL quarterback Jeff Kemp on the show. Father's Day. So I think it's important to talk about the family unit, the importance of fatherhood. He's a champion for that. This guy's been his whole life. He's been working on that, maintaining the family unit, your faith, all these things that we're seeing dismantled in society intentionally, and the effects that it's having. I mean, just look at everything that's going on. So always great to have
students.
Yeah, exactly. And for those that don't know, Jeff, former quarterback, but his father was also Jack Kemp. So he was obviously raised by a pretty solid father with conservative values. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I think it's just important to put out a positive message for Father's Day and for the nuclear family, for the preservation of family, which is one of the reasons they're losing all the Hispanic vote, by the way. That's a very, very important issue within the Hispanic community. And the more you try to dismantle it or throw labels at them and tell them you need to go buy Latin X or whatever the hell they're doing now, they're losing them. They're running away in droves. So, and you've been polling it, and we've been talking about it for a long time now. So, also I've got Dr. Peter Bregan, he's working with Dr. Peter McCullough, a lot of other people, leading experts in the COVID stuff, what's going on now with the cover up. He really makes a great case about, and it's something I've talked about too, but he does a little bit more eloquently with a little bit more data than I have, how this is all the World Health Organization. This is all part of this global stuff. It's all tied into the WEF and all these different things. So Dr. Peter Bregan's pretty good stuff too. So tomorrow, noon Eastern time, check us out every Saturday at noon Eastern time, DonSmithShow.locals.com. And Rumble channel is Don Smith Show, just one word.
Yeah. All right. With that in mind, we'll get going. I will see everyone tomorrow, noon Eastern Standard Time. If you're not already a subscriber to Don's Rumble channel, go ahead and go on over to Rumble and sign up so you can watch. All right. Be cool tomorrow. And yeah, Don, as always, thanks for hanging out. 20 after again.
No problem.
Push the damn show back or something, man. I'll tell you. Or we just got to get to the questions sooner. Maybe I'll do a half-hour segment and just get into it because it is just, you know what? It's good. It's just can't get to the questions. If there's that many questions, it means there's a lot of people watching. So we really do try to get to all your questions, guys. We do. That's why we're always late. But yeah. With that in mind, my friend, as always, thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow at noon. Give Brenda our best as always.
Love to Laura and the kids as well. Thanks, everybody. Great questions today.
Bye.
Absolutely. Bye, Brenda. All right, Don Smith, ladies and gentlemen. See you soon, Don.
All right, see you soon.
Don Smith Show, noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. All right, I'm going to kick rocks and get out of here. Hope everybody has a really safe and pleasant weekend. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, go sign up on Rumble. But seriously. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live, and give us a like if you like it. On Getter, keep it coming, guys. Awesome, man. We love the growth, folks. Really love the growth. And on there, you can follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. All right. The best way, of course, to follow me is to sign up on Locals, which is peoplespundit.locals.com, and share the Public Polling Project far and wide. The link is in every description wherever you are watching. And it's simple to get to. bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. All right. All right. I'm going to get going. Thanks to everybody. As always, Laura's not in the room, so I'll do it for her. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show